Ever since humans have hunted for food and competed against others, they have developed weapons to help them. As militaries began to organize themselves, huge resources were devoted to creating new deadly devices to give an edge over the enemy. And it's amazing to see how things have changed throughout history. While modern weapons may seem futuristic compared to the past, certain historical weapons stand out as remarkably ahead of their time. People of the past fought wars and battles, yes, but not with the artillery we have today. Ancient civilizations utilized the materials available to them. Wood, metal, fire, and stone made for some pretty creative weapons. But as simple as these weapons might seem by today's standards, don't fool yourself. Some ancient weapons were extremely lethal when wielded by a skilled hand. From frighteningly sharp blades to cannons, clubs, and even artificial claws, it's time to travel into the past to see 15 incredible ancient military weapons. But before we start, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. Claw of Archimedes. The Claw of Archimedes, also called the Iron Hand, revolutionized naval warfare. It was a crane with a heavy tip attached to a ship's bow or a coastal defensive structure. The operator would release the mechanism when an enemy ship came within the claw's range. The fist of iron would then come crashing down on the enemy ship, with predictable results. There was also another version of the claw that worked the other way around. It would lift the enemy ship up from the water and capsize it. The grappling hook would grab approaching ships, causing enough damage to eventually cause them to sink. It is one of those weird ancient weapons that was very effective. The Urumi. The Urumi were sword whips with great flexibility. The material used for the blade was so flexible that the Urumi could be worn around the waist as a belt. The length of the edge tended to vary, although it could be as long as 5 meters. Whipping the blade in circles created a defensive zone that was difficult for the opponent to penetrate. The blades of the Urumi were sharpened on both sides, so it was even risky for a user to wield it, and required extensive training to master. It took great skill to perform simple actions like a change of direction or bringing the weapon to a stop. Even though the requirements to properly wield the weapon were strict, mastering it made the user a deadly warrior. Khopesh. The khopesh is one of the oldest weapons of war in human history to be made entirely of metal. Swords, as we recognize them today, became common in the 16th century BC, but before then the khopesh dominated the Near East. The result was a strange-looking curved weapon with a sharp, axe-like edge and a hefty amount of metal behind it, making it just as good at bashing through armor as it was at slicing. Its sharpened tip meant that it could also be used as a stabbing weapon. The khopesh was one of the most advanced weapons of its age, but it was also incredibly expensive to make. Only professional warriors and nobility could afford to own one, so it quickly became a symbol of Egypt's ruling elite. By the time the Age of Pharaohs ended, these weapons were even frequently appearing in the tombs of the mighty rulers themselves. Shrouded. The ancient Ethiopians used this weapon for effective attack. The design is unique and different with its curved shape. The curved sword is a beautiful weapon with an intricate design and distinctive shape. It is pretty heavy too, so it takes complete mastery to control it. This sword was originally designed to deliver effective attacks to unmounted and horse-mounted soldiers. Its curved design was designed to deliver stabs to important organs, such as the lungs or kidneys. It could also strike the opponent's shield. However, if anyone wanted to create an artistic design, they could do it on the hilt. The curved sword originated in the medieval period and survived Western influence in the 19th century. Flamethrowers. When the Byzantine Empire invented Greek fire around 673 AD, a terrifying, napalm-like liquid that could keep burning even sitting on water. The only thing they were worried about was finding new and exciting ways to deploy it in battle. Flamethrowers, which experts say rank on the baddest scale somewhere above monster trucks and just below playing the solo from Stairway to Heaven with your junk, were the most powerful weapon of the Byzantine Navy. Even more surprising, the way they were made and operated back then was similar to their modern counterparts in design. The Byzantine flamethrower used a piston to shoot liquid naphtha through a lit flame. The Chinese improved the Byzantine design by adding double piston bellows, which could shoot fire with both the upstroke and the downstroke, creating a steady stream similar to modern flamethrowers. This huge new semi-automatic crossbow. The repeating crossbow was the first semi-automatic weapon ever invented. Trained soldiers could fly 10 bolts in 15 seconds before the magazine needed to be reloaded. Due to the nature of the action, it needed to be shot from the hip in order to fire that quickly. and the bolts were often dipped in a fast-acting poison so that just a scratch could be fatal. It proved to be an essential defensive weapon, as one could keep backing away from the enemy while shooting wildly into the advancing horde. Roman scissor. Unlike the modern scissors, this one was rather unusual, especially from the ancient Rome era. At 18 inches long and weighing around 5 lbs, this weapon was considered ideal for Roman gladiators. It got its name from a type of gladiator class, the scissors. They were gladiators who aren't well known in history. The saber is a two-part weapon. It has a long tube into which the gladiator's arm is inserted. On the end of the tube, there is a cylindrical pipe. On the end of the pipe, you can see a crescent-shaped blade. The crescent-shaped blade is the unique element of the weapon, thus making it popular. Because of its nature and shape, the weapon was considered dangerous and versatile, able to block opponents' slashing, stabbing, and blows. Madhu. This is another type of ancient weapon that originated from ancient India. It was often called maru or madhu, made of steel, and used by Indian warriors. At 24 inches in length and 3 lbs to 14 lbs in weight, the weapon could inflict quite a serious injury. It has a crossbar that acts like a handle. This type of weapon had different variations, one of which had a shield addition that could be used for defensive action. Mambo. Using a throwing knife requires a fair bit of skill. Of course, the user needs to be able to throw the weapon accurately, which requires practice. The Africans made an effective weapon, the cane with multiple blades. The blades are oriented so that the unfortunate enemy will be hit by a sharpened edge, no matter how the knife is thrown. They were most commonly thrown overhead, but they could also be thrown sidearm, a low throw that aimed to take out the target's legs. Bagnak. The bagnak, also known as the bagnaka, which means tiger claws, is a claw-like weapon from ancient India. It was based on the claws of big cats and had 4 to 5 curved blades that were used to slash through the skin and muscle. An additional knife-like weapon was added to the sides, which could be used for stabbing and thrusting. The bagnak is often associated with the Marathi warrior Shivaji, who used it to kill Asil Khan, a Mughal general. Jua. The ancient Chinese weapon, the jua, is one of the most unusual weapons in history. The weapon has a long handle and a claw-like figure with sharp blades at the edge. It was used to rip away the enemy's weapons and shields. The jua could be used to impale flesh and then rip it off the opponent. If used professionally, it has the capacity to pull a soldier from a mounted horse. The iron jua is also heavy enough to kill and can be used for bludgeoning, but its sharp claws make it more dangerous and leave the opponent exposed to multiple risks. Flaming fire arrows. Flaming arrows were used throughout medieval times as a thermal weapon. The Romans, Assyrians, Judeans, and many others used flaming arrows. Fire arrows with rockets attached were invented by the Chinese during the Song dynasty. The Japanese and Koreans used many variations of fire arrows and flaming arrows. The simplest flaming arrows had oil or resin-soaked cloth tied below the arrowhead, and these were very effective against wooden structures. The kikute. The kikute was similar to a shobo, a wooden weapon, but it was made of iron and had spikes. By turning the spikes inwards, it could be applied to victims' pressure points while gripping the neck or limbs. The kikute was a popular weapon among ninjas, particularly female ninjas who often wore rings. With the addition of poison, they could use the rings for fast and even fatal attacks, making it a deadly weapon of choice. The haladi. Ancient India is known to have produced some amazing weapons, in particular the haladi, the Rajput's lethal weapon. The haladi, a double-bladed knife, was one of their weapons of choice. The 2 double-edged blades were attached to a handle, and with a thrusting action the weapon could be used for cutting down enemies. The blades were slightly curved, which made them ideal for parries and slashes. This type of weapon was the first ever dagger with 3 blades. The fire lance. The fire lance comes from ancient China and resembles a spear. It could fire projectiles filled with gunpowder. The first form of the weapon had a spear to which a bamboo tube was strapped. The tube contained sand, which could be used for blinding the enemy and gaining an advantage at close quarters. As technology advanced, poison darts and shrapnel began to be used with the fire lance. Further variations and developments of the weapon led to the creation of other weapons. An example of this is the fire tube, which was a kind of flamethrower. Later, poisonous chemicals were mixed with explosive matter, causing the enemy to be burnt twice over.